You've made a ton of progress
Yeah.
in a very short amount of time, like less than 2 months. And you said it, and it was really interesting. And this is why I wanted to jump on with you and dive through all this, because you said something interesting the other day where you were like, "This business looks incredibly different than it did a couple months ago."
It does.
Right? So I'm curious, like from your perspective, in your words, like what those biggest things are. Like, what did the business look like before? What does it look like now? And then we can kind of dive into some of the nuances.
Okay. I think the biggest thing is that there is okay, so there's a goal that I have, right? And so this is a, $1.2 million business. So it's 100K a month produced. The difference, I think, first of all, is that, when from anywhere I stand within this company, I can see that goal, right? And I can say, okay, with the people that are here, we can get there. Previously, that was not the case. So first, the people changed.
Yeah, you've had a lot of changes to like the actual labor painter.
Yeah,
A good amount in a short amount of time.
huge. Yeah, I mean, we've done, well, since May, it's been over 100% turnover. So there's
Crazy.
nobody that's been with us since May.
Well, and I think
Everybody has come in
normally,
June.
I think normally you'd look at, somebody would look at that and go like, "Oh, that's bad, that's horrible. There's a ton of turnover." But at least from my experience working with you, and I imagine you kind of feel the same way. But I'm curious to hear you speak into this. Like, I see working with you from my perspective as that's much more of a good thing, because it was like we got really intentional about what our labor looked like, who we wanted, got out some of the bad, got some good people in. But what does that feel like from your seat? Like,
So from my seat, the people that are in positions within this company now are people that work well together, that embody our core values. They're honest, they're respectful, they're effective. They possess integrity in all that they do. There's nobody here that's going to do, that's going to roll their eyes at a client or talk smack about the client underneath an open window, or lie to the client about how many coats of paint are on the house, right? Like we don't have anybody like that here. Everybody here shows up, they give it 100%, and then even at the lowest rung, or like our weakest link, still shows up every day, right? That's a huge thing, is that, I got really intentional about the hiring. I also, look, I had to pay for it. So I looked at what we were spending on labor, and I thought, hey, listen, if I can pay people like $5 to $7 an hour more, and if they can just hit the budgets, we'll make more money, right? And then so we do that, right? So then we start hiring better people, because we go from like 22 to 25 to 30 to 32, right? Depending on
that's hitting bonuses. That wasn't an increased base hourly.
Their base hourly is between, well, we have one person that's a painter one who's at 25. Everybody else is starting between 28 and 30. But I'm also only hiring people that have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, whatever years of experience. And so
that's crazy. Andrew, so you're telling me you can hire people that are good people with integrity and meet your core values and have painting experience? That's freaking nuts, man. Who knew that was possible?
Well, I don't know. Depending on who you ask, it's impossible. Like, I mean, hey, look, we're on Facebook every day. Well, I'm not on every
that's
day,
a lot of that's painter internet, right? Like everybody's like, oh, you go subcontractors, or you hire green people and train them. It's like, wait a second, there is actually this mythical middle ground that I think we all just forget about, because it's hard.
I thought the same thing. Yeah, it is. It's a long game. But here's what happens, or what's happened for me, is that I knew okay, so I've done the subcontractor thing, right? And it's fine. You can scale with subcontractors a lot easier than you can with employees, I think. But you're always at the whim of the subcontractor. There's always going to be that. Are they going to hit up my, are they going to hit up my client for work? There's just there's no culture with subcontractors. The culture you get is, hey, you gonna pay us or what? And like that's
It's
kind of it.
transactional.
Yeah. And I wanted something more than that. I wanted a group of people that could grow together and be tight, that could work through challenges together and celebrate successes together. So anyway, going all the way back, how I got there was by paying people more. And then also, it's not just about money, because I don't want a little bit of financial motivation, but eventually you're going to run out, right? They're going to see the highest bonus that they've seen. They're going to be able to do the math in their head. And they're like, hey, if the best I ever got is this, then like, that's it. But I want people where this is the better deal, right? It's the same way we attract customers. Like I'm never going to pay the highest wages in town, but I'm doing, this is pretty good.
I'm going to provide the
just
most
like
opportunity.
Right, just like we provide the most value for clients. We're not the cheapest. We're middle of the road. Sometimes we're the most expensive. I just booked a project Friday where we were the high bid by like 15%. But she answered my question for me about why that was. Who's going to be there? What products are we using? Are we going to stand behind the work that we do? Is it easy to get on and get off? Right? Like, so, coming on as a client, getting the job done, ramping, off ramping as a client, she saw it as very easy. And so she's like, to me, my time's valuable, it's worth it. So we want to be the better deal. The biggest thing is how people are treated, and so my pitch to employees from the start is, okay, hey, what's it like working there? What are you doing for work? What's it like there? And that just plays right into my pitch about like, hey, look, we work together. You're valued. You're treated with respect. We understand you have a work-life balance. These are the hours that you'll work. This is the pay. We pay every Friday by direct deposit, period, the end. I've never missed a payroll. So all these things, depending on what they treat, what most people want, they just want to be treated right. They don't want to be a number. They want the boss to show up and be like, hey, freaking good job. Buy them lunch once in a while. I buy brushes or like random swag items. I just bought everybody like these Dickies like tool bags or whatever. Just like little stuff you show up, when the boss shows up, they're not like, oh shit, what now? I open up my back door and then boom, it's like this big box full of these tool bags or whatever, that kind of stuff. That's the biggest thing. So what looks different is that, for one.
So I know that's a big part of it. And I think the coolest part is like you're paying more, but I know your GP's actually gotten better, right?
Yeah.
Looking at your numbers, your GP's actually gotten better. And I know you implemented a whole bonus structure thing. I'm curious from your point of view, how much of your GP increasing do you think was due to like the talent of the people and everything we just talked about? And how much do you think that was due to like the bonus structure and the incentivizing them to, work faster, but also quality work, et cetera? Like what do you think was the bigger piece there? How do those play against each other there?
These are experienced painters, so they can look at a project and see from A to Z kind of what's required. But nobody does anything like, how insane would it be if I was like, here's a house, paint it, and then I got mad that it took too long, or that they didn't do, or that it didn't take enough time. Here's another thing: if they're going to beat the budget by more than about 10%, like red flags go up as much as if they go over by 10%. Because then it's like okay, well, so are we estimating wrong? Which is important. I mean, we want to be competitive. It's not just like, oh yeah, ka-ching, although that's a part of it. Like I want to know, or did something get skipped? Like we had a house back in June where they just annihilated the budget on it. And it turns out that they only put one coat on the house and they were supposed to put two. There were all these things that were cut, and the homeowner was happy, right? But I wasn't. And so then I had this, we had to go back. I went back and put another coat of paint on the house
Yep.
with another crew. And then they found other stuff that was missed too. You know, like there's no way they put bonding primer on this wall. So now we're doing that. And then when you look at how that kind of pencils out, actually, um, we didn't do as well as we thought. Alternatively, okay, so we put in the bonus system. We cramped down our labor percentage to 35%. So it's a healthier percentage.
Yeah.
And instead of using a complex metric that involves our charge rate and calculating hours off of that, it's just based on, hey, here's 35% of the contract value, and we're going to divide that by the average painter wage. Now everybody's on the same page about how long this should take, right?
Mhm.
Because the math is done for them. Hey, there are this many painters on it. This is how many hours. It's like right there in Excel for them to see themselves. They can play around with it. They can change whatever numbers they want. It's fully transparent.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad that we made that change. They can even see, hey, if we beat this by 10%, how many hours is it? Usually it's like half a day on Friday, right? If we can just be out of there by noon, we're going to pocket $70, $80 a piece, and then that's it. So now they have a roadmap that's clearly defined from beginning to end. Okay, so this is where we're going. And then we show them all the pieces that they have to put together to get there too. So it's like everything is like laid out. They just have to follow it. So the alternative is a project that we completed a couple of weeks ago where they did absolutely annihilate it. I mean, they made, $100+ bonuses a piece, and they are and it was done right. It was done right 100% of the time, 100%.
Yeah.
I went and walked through it, so I was like, and then sure enough, and the client, he's happy. Neighbors are coming over and asking, who did this? Who are these people? Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And my painters are there when this is happening, and they're like, we've never seen this shit happen before. Like it was just kind of like everything kind of came together, perfectly for just a minute. And this bonus system and what you call a jump sheet, what we call a project binder, is the basis for this. It's really kind of this foundation that we built off of.
No, I find it really interesting. I love what she said as you kind of went into all this of like, how do you like, you wouldn't ask somebody to paint a house and say, go paint this house, and then be upset with them if it took too long or if it didn't take long enough. And that's the biggest thing I found, like beyond even bonus structure and they can make more and all that sort of stuff, is it's like, it's a measuring stick for are you winning or losing, right? And if you take an experienced, talented painter and you give them a measuring stick, give them a goalpost. Okay, now we actually have something to work towards. We're actually competing in a game, right? Just like any high performer would, any salesperson would be, project manager would be, we got closing KPIs and these KPIs. Like we actually now have a measuring stick in a game we can compete in, not just show through the motions and clock in and out and whatever. And we have a measuring stick that when we win and we beat the goalpost, we get rewarded for it. Like,
yes.
So yeah, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. And if you can pay people more and run a more profitable company, I mean, everybody's winning. So.
Right. And that's the thing is like, so, when I go out and I do an estimate, it's based on three things, right? Labor, how many workers, how many days, materials, how many gallons of paint, profit, what do I need to make to keep the company open, grow, stay viable, pay myself, etc. I always have, just on a personal level, found it a little bit gross that if I do a good job, the reward for that is more work, not more money. And I explain this to people in the interview with me when I'm explaining this bonus system. Look, I've already made a commitment that I'm willing to spend. It's a $10,000 job. I'm willing to spend $3,500 on labor. So now what? At the last minute, I'm going to say I'm not willing to spend $3,500 anymore because you guys
because you guys did a good job. Because you did a good job, I'm actually willing to spend less. How crazy is that?
Because what, like, on what planet does that make sense? And so, but there's a whole ethos here of like, look, when I'm going to tangent off for a second, but when I started this company, I had a real problem with stuff like that. I had a problem with two things. I had a problem with how employees were treated, and I had a problem with how clients were treated as well, specifically in this industry. And I thought, you know what, there's got to be a way where we can treat everybody right according to this weird like moral thing that I have, and be successful. And you know, I'm so far I've been right. But Painter Internet, man. This is all counter to what most people think and how most businesses operate. But for as long as we can do it this way and stay viable and grow, I'm going to do it. And I think that the proof is here because now we're starting to get employee referrals to work here,
That's
right?
cool.
This is people telling their friends, "Hey, I know
Telling
you're
their
working
other
at."
experienced painter friends.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know you're working at the place we used to work at that's 4 times the size of this company, but come over here instead. This guy,
Have
like, you will not
you
believe how he treats
have you noticed the bonus structure become a recruiting tool for you, or not as much of a factor for you?
you. You know, I don't. I kind of steer clear from people that are heavily financially motivated, because
Sure.
they end up being disloyal. Um, they're the ones that, like, at least in my experience, are the ones I've had the most problems with, um, because they're motivated by the wrong thing. Um, Here's the thing, like, so as a business, right? Like, if statistically, if you look at this, a business like mine that's purpose driven overall is more profitable over the long haul, is more profitable than companies that are profit driven.
Sure.
And it's kind of a law of attraction thing, like, you know, like what you chase will be the most elusive, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of the same. I look for people that think like that, that are like, hey, if I, you know, show up and put my heart and soul into this, then I'm going to be rewarded for it on the back end. That's what I want.
Yeah.
However, this bonus system does end up as a tool to introduce my ethos, right?
Mm.
Because it's a way for me to kind of lay proof to what I'm saying. You know, like, hey, I want you to be rewarded for your hard work. And here's how I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a fair, honest company and we treat you right. And here's how we do that. If somebody wants to look at, you know, our contracts and say like, hey, am I really getting 35% of that? I'm going to print off a P&L too and show them what I walk away with
Yeah.
and see how embarrassed they are, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No,
sometimes like, hey, look,
hey, this isn't all smoke and mirrors. This is real.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, hey, look, you made $1,200 that week or whatever, and you know, off of your crew, I made 500, right? So I don't know who won here,
Sure.
like, you
Yeah.
know, or whatever the case is, like, but yeah, it's a good, and when you recruit the right kind of people, that trust is there. I've never had anybody ask to see a contract because I've earned their trust as they've earned mine.
100%. Yeah. I know that was one thing you mentioned too, that you were like, I feel like, yeah, I know you mentioned how you felt like your leadership style needed to change a little bit, and that was something that you feel like maybe you neglected earlier in your career, was the management and
Yeah.
leadership side of things. Do you feel like that's shifted at all with kind of these other changes in production, or is that still kind of? I mean, sure, it's always a work in progress, but how has that shifted at all, if it's shifted at all from your perspective?
You know, sometimes I have unknowingly, like, so I started out to create a company like this, but didn't know how to do it. Kind of in the process of working with you, and you said something to me one time that really stuck with me. Um, you know, for some of these people, it's all they can do to get out of bed in the morning. And I thought about times in my life where that was true. You know, I'll be 40 this year, right? And I've lived a lot of life, right? Without getting into like too much personal stuff on this particular call, I've lived a lot of life, and there have been long stretches of time where literally it was the best thing I could do was put on my boots and show up.
Yep.
So when I started to think about it that way, not like, hey, these guys are out here, you know, these guys are lazy. Like, there's a lot of hype these days about what workers are like, but the truth is these are human
You know.
beings, and they have feelings, they have lives at home, they have all this stuff that's going on. Sometimes that makes it hard to show up to work.
100%.
That kind of flipped the switch in me, and I was like, how would I want to be treated in this case? Who would I want to work for? And I thought about employers that I'd worked for that got close, and then when something didn't go right, it flipped around. It's like that. What a shitty dynamic, right? Like you think everything's great. Hey, these people really care about me, and then you blow it on a project, and all of a sudden, the other head comes up, and it's like, oh, there's the monster. So these guys, like, they really blew it last week. I'm not gonna lie, like every crew like blew it on every job. We had bad weather. It was super humid. They're not used to it. And so I had a choice, when I was doing our schedule on Sunday, I was like, do I punish these guys and take it out on them, or do I look for like my responsibility in this, which there is? Do I understand that they're human, and do I just say, you know what, we're going to finish it on Monday, and the customers can deal with it? It's the people whose projects are supposed to start this week. Hey, look, I'm not going to like print more painters off and like drop them. You know what I mean? Like the painters I have are the ones that I have. So if you don't like it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Stripe has a refund button for a reason. I mean, I tell them that, but like, I've thrown that out there before, like with clients too. Like, I mean, we can just refund your deposit too if it's that big of a deal, and
Sure.
usually it kind of like changes things. But I want to be smoother than that. So yes, it's changed things a lot, and the culture in this company is really different because I'm different. So this is that top-down leadership, leading from the front, thing, right? And they see me out there working once in a while too, and so like they understand like this guy can do it. This guy's a real deal. He can walk the walk. So yeah, I freaking love the culture in this company these days. Like, and so do my employees. Like, if you I should add you to like our company Slack channel or something so you can see.
Do it, yeah.
So you can see, because like I'll drop like video messages and stuff like that. Like kind of a midweek recap where I'm just like, guys, you're killing it. Like, thank you so much. Like, here's why I do this. Here's why we do this. And they're just like they love it because they've never been talked to like this before. It's like, if you've been dating somebody and they've never told you were handsome or pretty or whatever, and then all of a sudden that partner comes along that's like, hey, you're valuable. I want to take care of you, and that's really kind of that's my proposition to these guys. Like, hey, look, you're taking care of me. I can't do this work without you, right? I'd be back to trying to figure out how I'm going to pressure wash, do 6 estimates, and paint a house all in one day by myself.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's the
impossible.
coolest thing is the culture has dramatically improved and you're painting less than you have in the last year or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, I paint by choice now.
Yeah,
Almost,
100%.
mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's cool too that what you said of like, yes, it's like if you were dating somebody and they never told you were handsome or whatever, right? The reality is like, again, when you're getting experienced painters, when we're actually not hiring green people, we're hiring green people, they may be coming from Starbucks that has all this corporate training and they were told they're handsome every other day. Right? Not that we want to like exploit that or whatever, but when we now bring in an experienced painter, we don't need to teach them the skill set, and it's way easier to create an amazing environment from them because the standards in the industry are so low. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing when we're selling the clients. Like when I see guys on Facebook doing like dumb stuff as painting company business owners, or as like any home services company business owner, obviously like I want to help them not do that. But you know what my first thought is? Keep doing it, please, because you're just making my job easier. Anytime somebody argues with me, because I'll run into other I just met a business owner, and he's like, he owns a painting company like a couple hours north of me, and like just his outlook is like the exact opposite of mine. And it's like, you know what? Cool, keep doing that, because eventually we're going to be in that area too, and we're going to want people to work for us, and we're going to need homeowners to trust us. Please, if you're not trying to hear what I have to say, like, that's awesome, actually.
I hear you. Vanessa, you were going to say something, right? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there, dude.
Oh, you didn't cut me off at all. I didn't say anything. You're fine. But no, Andrew, I was just going to say, like, it's really cool to see, and it's something like a lot of people don't think about, but because you've been able to lead yourself so well, you're now able to lead your people so well. And that's like
Yeah.
a direct reflection of you as their boss, their leader, and it's showing. So it's really cool. And a lot of people don't know that. And obviously I won't go into details, but like, I mean, we found out last week you've been going through some really tough stuff.
Yeah.
We had no idea. Like I never
Yeah.
would have known, and that says so much about you that you're able to show up and be 100% every single day for your people, for us, for yourself, and that is, you know, a big reason why you're seeing so much success.
Yeah.
I think that there's to be able to work on oneself, there's an amount of vulnerability that you have to have, right? You have to be able to, you have to be vulnerable to yourself. You have to be willing to look inside yourself and accept truths and face facts that are ugly. But that vulnerability builds trust within yourself, and that vulnerability builds trust with other people. That I think that's kind of what's going on here, right? Is that's what's allowed me to lead, is like, you know, the hard times softened me up way before way before I got here, but this has been a place where I've been able to lead, right? Because I know how to do that work on myself, and it also encourages other people to you know, kind of like open up about like what they're feeling. And it's, you know, this is not a therapist office, right? But like, you know, we're a painting company, but it does allow people to say like, hey, you know what, I'm having a tough time right now. And actually operational things come out of that. People are more willing to come to me with like operational issues than they would be if I was a hard ass. And it's what these people want. It's not like, my employees don't want weird stuff that's like out of the question. Like they just wanted like some different size ladders like one time, or like there have been like little things here and there where they're just like, hey, you know, our jobs would be 10 times easier if we had this thing.
Sure.
You know, if we had an extra, you know, if we had a, you know, third or fourth or fifth, whatever, hand masker for this crew, like that would make things a lot easier. I mean, it's just, if it makes
Well,
them
that's what
happy
you
and it
want.
costs me like a couple $100, yeah, 100%.
You want people bringing them stuff to you, that stuff to you, and that's what happens when you create a culture where people feel comfortable that they can. Right? It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want to bother Andrew with that, right? It's like, oh no, like he's in this with us. He wants us to win. You know.
And how I, you know, like, so the thing is like how I treat them, how I answer the phone when they call, how I respond to Slack messages. Like sometimes I have to like take a deep breath. I have a painter that she must have called me 7 or 8 times on Friday while I'm in the middle of doing other stuff, because these guys, like, because this crew like didn't do what they were supposed to do. I had to jump in and cover some other stuff and tie up some loose ends. So I'm like kind of doing their job for them. I'm kind of mad about it. I'm not going to lie. And then I've got 20 questions and 7 phone calls, right? And so, but how I answered, I'd remind myself, like, she doesn't know what I'm doing right now. I could just be sitting on my couch for all she knows. So, or I'm sitting at my desk working hard on proposal. Who knows? She doesn't know that I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
here busting my ass, like pressure washing this house because, you know, the other girl on her team like blew it basically and did a shitty job. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just like,
real.
take that deep breath, and it's like, yeah, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? And then talking through whatever that stuff is. And so, yeah, we want to, you know, we want to do it this way, for sure. Like, hey, you know what? Like, it sounds to me like you've given it your best today. You worked 12 hours. Like, yeah, call it. Are you kidding me? Like this is, yeah, like this is not that kind of
So,
place. So,
question for you. I don't mean to overharp on this, but I'm curious. So, when I finally got the bonus structure right, one of the things I noticed between my crews and how I was managing them, and then how I was managing them before versus how I watched like leaders of sub crews manage their crews, was it flipped the paradigm on its head, where I wasn't like the typical painter boss I see is like constantly like, we got to go faster, we got to go faster, we got to go faster, right? And then once I brought the bonus structure in, it was like, well, there was no constant urgency because I was going to pay out relatively the same amount either way, whether it was bonuses or whatever. So I don't really care as long as we're not going over by more than a fraction of an amount. Cool with me. And I noticed that changed, that had a shift in our culture of our production as well. You implemented the bonus structure. Did you see that piece of it too, or?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's more urgency, way more urgency from these guys than for me, and I'm the one with like all the skin in the game, really. Because they could just take longer, they could hit OT, and actually they'd make more. But here's the thing: these guys, it's summertime, like, and it doesn't matter. Nobody wants to paint any longer than they have to, and so the reality is like they're going to get paid for work that they're not doing. Um, so they're highly incentivized to get this done efficiently and get it done right the first time. I started it though, because here's some of it. Like what I told them was, look, the bonus structure is here if you want to make money. If you want to finish this on budget, go ahead. I don't care. You want to come to work every day? Yeah. You want to work? Yeah, and it's kind of it's the takeaway, right? And this works really well in sales. I love it because you can tell somebody like, yeah, you know what, we might not be the right company for you. And so actually in this case, it may not make sense for us to, provide you with a proposal. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Wait a minute. No, of course I want a proposal. Of course I want to find out how much this is going to cost. Like, of course I resonate with everything that you're saying. And it's the same thing with employees. Like, of course we don't want to be here any longer than we have to. Like, of course we want to get paid extra for our hard work. Like, yeah, like who doesn't? But it put all of the responsibility for that on them. So now it's not like, hey, look, I'm trying to do you guys a favor here and pay you more. It's just like, I don't care what you do, because the schedule's the schedule. Like, if you finish it, you're just going to have like more time off, or we'll move on to the next project sooner if it's available.
And
like,
make more.
Otherwise, like, yeah, exactly. Like, otherwise, who cares? And so I can see that there are weeks where they choose one or the other. Most of the 90% of the time, they choose let's get a bonus, which is good because we're scheduled very tightly. That's the other thing is like, I mean, this is jam packed this month. We have to bang out like almost 90K this month. And it's gonna be tough. I just realized like I'm actually short like somewhere between 3 and 5 people to make that happen. I think because there's going to be stuff that fills in. I have all these gaps in the schedule that I want to fill. But I need more painters to do it. I'm just basing it on like our productivity. So yeah. So that bench came in handy. Like, I was able to go back through. So to go back to what I learned from you about recruiting too, not to blow you up too much, but the idea of the idea of a bench is something I never really thought of before, because it's like, well, yeah, I don't want to string people on, but I'm not. It's just like, hey, look, right now we've decided to. I mean, this is the same thing every employer says. Like, we've decided to go with some other applicants, but we're going to keep your name, and if things change, like, I'm going to reach out to you. You'll be one of the first ones I reach out to. And guess what? When you reach out,
yeah, go ahead.
No, when you reach out, like, you have 2/3 of the time there's somebody there waiting to hear it, and they're like, yeah, like, I've got a girl working for me right now where I think she was like kind of like 3rd or 4th round, and she actually has ended up being a really versatile employee with a really good attitude that's infectious too. Like, she'll be like, hey, yeah, no problem, boss. Hey, come on, guys, let's get this done. Like, let's just do it. Because there's a couple guys that are like, anytime something different comes up. But
so that's some of the pushback I've gotten. That's some of the pushback I've gotten on the bench. Idea is like, oh well, if they're still available in 2-3 months or whatever, like, are they really that good of a candidate or whatever? I would argue, like, if you're hiring in a different industry, yes, that might be a red flag, right? How have they not found a job or a good opportunity and whatever? But again, at least it's been my experience, and I imagine from what you're saying, this has been the same with you, Andrew, but confirm or deny, when we're hiring and recruiting experienced painters in this industry of house painters, so there's a good chance that everything we've been talking about today is pretty unique in the market, and that in 2-3 months they're still working for, pardon my French, but the asshole that comes in and is on their neck about when they need to be finished and not hyping them up, not telling them. There's a good chance in 2-3 months they're still working for a piece of crap and they want a better opportunity, which is sad, but like, that's why I think building a bench can be so valuable with those two pieces. And it sounds like you kind of experienced the same thing with that candidate.
So when people say that about a bench, this is painter internet again, right? I flip it around on them. Hey, listen, if you call in 2 or 3 months and somebody's not interested, then you don't have that good of an opportunity. That's the flip, right? So the flip is like they're not that good of a candidate. No, I bet they are. But what kind of what are you going to offer them? The same thing that everybody else is? No. Hey, look, I don't run vans. Like I don't have company vans. You got to we have either myself or somebody else that does all of our crew moves. There's no perks to working here, like other than how you're treated, right? Like you're not going to get a van. You're going to have to spend your own gas money getting to and from work. You got to find parking, street parking wherever we go. A lot of it's in the city. It's hard. Like there's a lot of reasons not to. We don't have a 401k or like health benefits yet. Like
we don't either.
There's a lot of stuff. But we do PTO and paid holidays. So I kind of try to balance everything out with like what we can, what's reasonable and what's not. And people still choose to come to work here. Like our last hire, she said it really well. She's like, look, I can figure out how to come up with health insurance. I just haven't been able to figure out how to get treated right at work.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I was speechless. This was in her second interview, and it's like I was just like, what? Like, come again?
It's so true. Fair. No, it's seriously, it is so true. So yeah, no, that's super well said. Of you to re-ask yourself, is it that they're a bad candidate, or that you don't have that good of an opportunity? So.
I think to be a successful business owner, I've done this. I've had a company prior to this. I've had multiple businesses prior to this. One was successful and I sold it. The other ones didn't work out. I think to be a successful business owner, you really have to be willing to look deep inside yourself and be honest. I think honesty, people are like, hey, what's the number one requirement to be a business owner? Like desire, capital, no, honestly, it's honesty. You have to be able to look within yourself and ask yourself those questions. Did the client, without internalizing it too much at the same time, did the client not go with me? Was it really because of price? And being able to look at that, is there something what could I have done differently, that might have pulled them over when they said, I decided to go with this other company and then they gave me reasons. Did that mean that they didn't, because I do all that stuff too. Did I not convey that well enough? Hey, this employee, this candidate won't return any of my phone calls. Did I give them a reason to pick up the phone? Because I'll tell you something, Eric, at any of your businesses, if you had, if you hey, this is it's a marketing company, hey, you got to do marketing shit, but we'll pay you $1 million an hour. They'd pick up the phone anytime you call. They'd return every text. How do I convey that this is $1 million an hour opportunity, in terms of how it's going to make you feel, right?
It's a really good perspective.
Honesty.
It's a really, really good perspective. And I think it's interesting hearing you talk about honesty. At least I almost hear it two different ways. Honesty of with your employees, where you're like, hey, I'll show you the P&L. I'll open your management, which I very much practice in a lot of ways, not in its entirety, but 95% of the way. But also honesty with yourself, right? Honesty of hey, this is actually where my flaws are. This is where I need to improve. This is what my team needs of me. This is what my clients need of me. And it's that almost dissolving of ego, which you see so much in painter internet, right? Where it's you can't admit something to yourself because that ego of, no, I swear it was a good job, or I shouldn't discount my price or whatever, where it's what does the company actually need from me? No place for ego. Let's solve the problem, right? That's super cool.
And I think that there's okay, let's pricing, right? I think this is a great thing where people are this is what it costs for me to do it, and this is what it costs for me not to do it. Well, listen, if I can lower the price 400, And a lot of clients have bought into that too, or they don't know that this is negotiable. I closed 2 jobs last week by discounting them, both $400 or less. These are, well into the 5 figures, 4 figures. They're approaching 5 figures. $250 to $400 is not a big deal.
Not gonna make
At
or
the
break our
end, like
GP. Yeah.
we can find a way to come up with it. I mean, even if the job was like 3 or 4 grand, we can find a way. I mean, that's the sales tax, right? Like we can find a way to come up with that somewhere else. We can, well, for one, I mean, 35% of whatever amount we negotiate, we'll save it on labor, right? Like whatever, right? Like there's a way to come up with it, but um, yeah, my sales would be half of what they were if I wasn't willing to negotiate a little bit. Maybe not half, but you know what I mean? Like
I do.
so what is my duty here? Like my duty here is to keep my employees to promote our culture and to like fight for our core values no matter what the cost is, right? So they start with me, I have to uphold it. But I also have to fight for them with our company culture, even with our clients, right? As much as our employees. Like, hey, look, if we have things about honesty and respect, our clients need to be honest and respectful too. We've had some clients come at our painters like maybe the wrong way. I've had to tell a client like, hey, listen, we're not those kind of people. You can't talk to us like that.
Yep.
So if you've got an issue, please, you can talk to me. That's fine, but don't come out and start yelling at my guys.
100%. Well, and back
So
to that whole piece of, for some of our painters, the real talk is it was hard just for them to get out of bed in the morning. If we can create
yeah,
systems and operations and culture and whatever to make as much of it as easy as possible so they can just show up and paint and sort of enjoy the work they're doing and the people they're working with, it makes all that easier. And to your point, like we got to protect that on every angle.
so if I can, in the name of doing that, if I can swallow my pride and take a little bit less to get a job done, right? Or I can ask a customer where they've had a proposal out there for 30 days. Hey, listen, what can I do to earn your business? Just tell me, hey, anything you want, run it by me. Let's see what we can do, right? Like some people will be like, I'm never going to grovel. Well, if I'm looking at my schedule for September and we're only 2 weeks into it, and I need a job the third week of September, or I need to fill something in because something got moved, I'm going to do it. One of the reasons why my sales were so high last month is we had a project go poorly and we got kicked off of it. And I needed to find something for 5 people to do for a week and a half until the next job. And so I went out that same day, right, and started closing work for these guys. Like I tell them that, like, hey, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but here's what I'm going to do with my time, right? So these guys went home
Honest-
early, and I went
honest
out there
leadership,
and
too.
yeah, I went out there and beat it, and so they understood when they couldn't get me on the phone. When they had to start moving around and doing a bunch of different stuff that week, they understood why that was. It wasn't because we're a poorly organized company. It was because
It wasn't
I want
because
you
you
guys
were
to
a
make money.
jerk.
No,
Yeah, it wasn't because you were
yeah,
poorly organized. It wasn't because you were a jerk. 100%. That, like, I can't tell you how many of those same moments I've had, or even my project manager has had. And it's like, yeah, I've watched these same moments in other people's businesses. The painters get upset and grow resentment, and then the paint business owner have the same sort of resentment of they don't understand. I'm busting my ass for them, all this sort of stuff. Where it's like there was just no honesty and communication or any leadership there where exactly it's like, hey, this isn't because I'm a bad person, this isn't because I'm a jerk, this isn't because we're an organizer, we run a bad business. This is part of business. This is what I'm doing to help you guys. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm doing to help. Yeah, it's great leadership. So
and I'll show them my calendar. Like I work more than anybody in this company, by far. And so like I'll show it to them and just be like, hey, this is what I got going on today. So no, I don't have time for that, but we can do it tomorrow or the day after, right? I tell them like, hey, when I'm not here, because this is really tough for me. I think I talked to you about this too. Like, what am I like? What are these guys going to think when I'm not on the job site?
yeah,
My cred has always been that I'm
you're
here,
a badass painter.
yeah, and I'm leading from the front, like that. When we're spraying out siding or whatever, like I'm the machine, and I empowered other people to be the machine instead. And I tell them, hey, when I'm not here, and they don't like. I mean, there's jobs where like I'll go there once. Usually, it's always on day one. I do all of our project startups. I'll go there once, and then that's it. I'll never see it again until I go pick up our stuff or collect a check
Awesome.
or whatever. Yeah, I freaking I love it, but I want him to know, like, hey, I'm not at home, like, having nap time. Like, this is what I'm out there doing. And so, because they wonder too, like, a lot of the reason why people have come to work for me is because it's slow other places. And we're able to, like, we're smart with our marketing. We have a sales process, et cetera. But, so I'll tell them, like, that's my new hire, Kara. She was like, look, at this other place, like, it was really slow. And I was like, red flag, it's summertime. This is our busy season, for one, but two, don't sweat it. I just sold $100,000 worth of work last month and I need people to do it. And so when they hear that, they're like, they don't know how many painters it takes to do that. I mean, it
Sure.
take 100,000 painters to do that for all they know. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
so, but when you tell people stuff like that, it's like, hey, when I'm not here, and I tell my guys, look, if I have to be here solving problems that crew leaders can solve, I'm not selling for you, which means sooner or later, there will be a time where we don't have something to do. And I will remember who I had to work with that couldn't figure this stuff out on their own, and they'll be the ones to sit at home. So now when I show up, like, I was there, I came out to one of our jobs and started.
You take their bonus. Yeah. They're
this
like, no,
last
no,
time,
no,
yeah.
don't. Yeah.
That's what happened. Is like she came around the corner of the house and she's like, "What are you doing?" Like I was doing something wrong. I'm like, "I'm spraying siding." Like, "What are you doing?" Like, pull my mask off. I'm like, "I'm spraying siding. What's up?" And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, "We're behind on this project. Like, it's got to go forward." And so then she wanted to talk about it, and she's like, "I feel like I've really failed as a crew leader." And I was like, "Oh shit." Like, I pushed it too hard on this, and I was like, no, hey, I'm just here to help you out. And so on that one, I was like, man, I was like, all right, I'm not going to put my hours down on this one. It was like,
Sure.
it was like 3/4 of the day. I was like 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. But it put them a lot further ahead than they would have been. So, like, instead of wrapping up on Wednesday, they're wrapping up today. I mean, I just got a note from my guy, like, they're doing the walkthrough, and he's like, you can come pick up a check anytime you want. Like, you can pick up a check and come get our shit.
Oh man, I
Like,
love it.
thanks,
No, I
buddy.
mean, it's seriously come a long way. It's impressive how much the team has changed in such a short amount of time. And your two last things. One totally kind of random off the cuff though, but I'm curious because I heard you talking about scheduling and stuff. Are you giving clients like exact days of when you're gonna start?
I've gone back and forth on this, and yes, we do.
Okay.
And so I know.
Okay, you've heard my take on it before. Okay, cool. I just while we're here,
yeah.
I wanted to make sure I didn't forget that.
I am probably so here's the thing. I've told everyone that works here, the schedule is do or die. So I don't care what you have to do. That when we tell, so this, whether we show up on time for a project or not, is the beginning of our relationship with this client. And it builds trust and integrity and fosters project integrity when we do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. So I don't care. Look, I'll be there working weekend right alongside of you. Okay. I'll be there working late, and I've done it. Like, I've gone out there at 5, 6 o'clock and we painted until the sun went down. I had three guys call out on the same crew. My God. And so, like, me and somebody else, after he was done, stayed out there. We put in something like, I don't know, it was like 3 14-hour days, like outside of work hours to get
Sure.
this. I don't even know how that's possible. Like, but we were able to do it. To make sure that project got done on time. However, I'm moving towards a, like, September 1st, first week, second week, first available spot, second available,
Yeah.
etc., and coming up with, like, wording on how to convey that to clients. So it's not just like, we'll get to you when we can. It's hey, this is serious. But
I love the motto and the mindset behind that. The only thing I would probably caution you on is exactly that, where the bigger this gets and with what your vision is, it's going to get there. Like, it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder. And what happens when now there's 6 crews and that happens on 2 of them? There's only one Andrew to jump in, right?
Yep.
And what happens when
Yeah,
there's something else Andrew needs to fix? And it's like, it'll just, it's totally doable now, but as it grows, it's going to be harder. And then, and maybe you've already encountered this, you could kind of have the contrary where it's like that one client's a little, they're not like the coolest in the world. They're a little iffy. And then we're working until sundown. They feel like they're getting rushed to get to the next person. So now they're not thrilled. You could just
Yeah.
start ending up with a little bit more of that. The way
There's no winners. Yeah.
Yeah, the way we've done it is the language is beginning of, middle of, end of said month, right? And we tell like, so after it closes and we do that handoff call, my admin does the handoff call, we say that on the call where it's like, hey, right now, we're looking at about beginning of September. I just want you to know I'll continue to keep you updated as we go. And as we start getting closer, probably about 7 days out or so, I'll give you more of a hard date of like the day I'm actually expecting to start. And if that's changing, of course, I'll let you know. As you know, I'm in construction. Sometimes it can go a little faster. Sometimes things go a little slower. I'll continue to keep you updated. That's where that admin coming in is really helpful because then when you are like literally every week, every other week, hey, Susan, haven't forgot about you. We're still looking at middle of September. They're like, oh, okay. Like they're in the loop. And that's been a really good system for that. So
I'm trying to find a way to automate it using the tech that we have now. I don't know.
I
I haven't
tried.
figured it out yet. Yeah, it's tough.
So
There-
one of our other clients was asking me about this because he's similar to you. He's sharp with Excel and all this sort of stuff, and he was like trying to figure out how I could automate this and that and whatever. And I tried automating all of it with like custom fields in the CRM to like again beginning of, end of, whatever to custom
Yeah.
field to automate that message and whatever. And I found then the problem was once I started automating it was updating the fields to make the automations correct. And then the
Yeah.
automation was wrong. And the client's like, wait, you said this. And it's like, oh, fuck the automation. Like, because we didn't change
Yeah.
the whatever. And it was just easier to just have my admin take 2 hours on Wednesday and just update everybody. This is where we're at. Not as sexy or automated, but I found that was easier.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. Sometimes you just have to do work, and I mean it's the same thing in painting, right? Like you can't use a sprayer for everything. Sometimes you got to brush it, and I know it takes
Yeah.
longer, but like I probably once every couple of weeks I have this conversation with somebody in this company that like, yeah, we could spray it. It's just logistically it doesn't make a lot of sense. We're just gonna brush and roll this one, man. Like, or yeah, we could brush and roll it. We're gonna spray it. I know you got to do the masking or whatever, but it's gonna look a lot better, whatever. So
Similar
I think we're moving towards that because the way things are going to get scheduled in the future is based on contract value and our production capacity. So I measure like our cap by the number of painters times the average productivity of each painter, and then that kind of tells me am I under or over on a week. And then I can choose, like I can tell guys, hey, drag your feet or bump the hours up a little bit if I don't have anything to fill it. Or I can say, all right, I need a small job. Hey, look, I've got one over here. Boom, let's do it. And pressure washing, we do pressure washing now too. They're just kind of getting into it. Those jobs are great filler because even if you have to go rent the equipment, you're talking about like maybe $100 in rental fees to make $100 an hour as a company. Like it makes perfect sense to do it. So
no, totally. It's probably not going to be the most pressing thing quite yet, like I said, because we'll work on making sure things are good and stable, and we'll hire the admin and do some of that stuff. But and we have some trainings on it, but I'll have to show you our whole scheduling system, and like what we built and click up with some calendar views and whatever. And I think combined with some of the thoughts you have now, you'll create a pretty coherent system pretty quick. So
cool. Yeah, nice. That's what we want.
Last thing, I know this has been long.
No, it's great.
No, I don't know if this part will actually ever get shown to anybody because the intention is to keep it small and we only have 2 or 3 openings anyways. But who would you this consulting thing, this whatever this thing is we're doing, right? Like who would you recommend it towards? For what painting contractors do you think it'd be a good fit for versus not a good fit for?
Everybody wants to, well, I don't know. You have to be open-minded. I think that if I were looking for somebody to pitch this to, it's got to be somebody that's open-minded. Eric, you and I are both contrarians in this industry, more so than a lot of other people. I mean, there's been so many like calls and conversations that we've had where you've said, "Hey, this kind of defies, logic," or this flies in
It's
the face
different
of,
than how everybody's done it. Yeah.
of conventionality, in this industry. And I really like that kind of stuff because a lot of the stuff I do can be unconventional too. It has to be somebody that's open-minded. So that I think that's the first thing. Like, are you willing to consider something other than your own views, somebody else's experience in this? Because what's the first thing that came out of people when you built and scaled $1 million painting company in a year? Bullshit, right? A lot of guys were just like, that's fucking bullshit. There's no way. Oh, it's because he has a marketing company. Yeah, no doubt. Like,
Sure.
it
Yeah,
is,
it did
but
help.
yeah,
I've been
like
honest.
I'm sure it helped. Yeah, yeah. But there are a lot of excuses that people made about why it wasn't possible, about why reality wasn't reality. They have to be open-minded, and then obviously it's got to be somebody that has a plan or an idea that's greater, right, than where they're at. That's the biggest thing. You can't necessarily target that. Like, I don't know how you would target that, but I think if I were going through a list of people that were interested in this, that's a big thing that I would screen for. Where else in their life are they open-minded? Like, what has their reaction been to unconventional things that I've said during this conversation? I do this when I do in-person interviews with people. Is like, I shift gears and go back and forth a lot it's to kind of catch them off guard, but I want to see how people think. There's a type of thinker that I'm looking for. So somebody who can think on their feet. I don't care if it's the right answer or not. Are they trying? That's important to me. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to throw something out there. So
Sure.
I've done other coaching programs. I have listened to other coaches for the last 3 or 4 years. Until this year, April of this year, I was completely resistant to even spending money on coaching, let alone thinking that there's somebody that knew more about this than me. And by far, the best decision I made was to get used to spending money through Painter Growth, right? Like, they got me comfortable spending about the same amount a month, a little more. Excuse me. This is the best choice that I've made, was getting on with this, and I'm really grateful that you chose to bring me into this program. Like I've said before, it's unrecognizable in its current form. I have learned a lot from you, and what I haven't, you've given me permission to practice things that I already knew. Like, hey, well, like, I just knew. I'm like, Eric's got me. If Eric agrees, I trust this guy. I do. I trust you a lot. I've watched you, over the years, and like you talk the talk and walk the walk. That's really important. It's believable. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, this guy's done it.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for that.
You're kicking butt, taking names. You got a lot to be proud of.
Thanks.
So
Thank you. Yeah,
cool.
I got to remember that too.
100%. Cool.
All right.
All right, dude.
Appreciate it, man.